Hello, and welcome to Networking with Michelle. You are tuned into the podcast dedicated to enhancing your professional development by nurturing relationships and navigating the professional maze. Michelle Gomez is the founder of Line 25 Consulting and author of the book Network, Navigate, and Nurture, The Equation to Strategic Networking. Here now is Michelle Gomez.
So thank you for tuning in once again to Networking with Michelle. Today we have Parviz of Clammr, an app, here today. So Parviz, how are you doing today?
Great. Thank you, Michelle. And thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. So as I stated in our pre-interview, I went to Las Vegas in April for the new Media Expo. I believe I met Jordan there. And ever since, well, a couple of things. So ever since I left, that's all I've been hearing about in the podcast world, Clammr. And I did not have any Apple products. So you forced me to go buy an iPad. And I was like, let me jump on this app. So if you don't mind, just, share with us a little bit about Clammr.
Sure. First of all, congrats on the iPad. Glad to have helped you get access. That's always nice to try out different types of technology. I've done both Android and iOS, and I think they both have positives. So Michelle, Clammr is a bite-sized audio platform. A lot of early users are calling us audio Instagram or audio Twitter. It provides a continuous stream of short audio clips that are personalized to what the listener's interest is. And each clip is capped at 18 seconds. So you get a continuous feed of short audio clips. They can be news summaries, podcast highlights, great music hooks, and they just keep going one after the other. No fluff, just boiling things down to their essential. And a lot of listeners just love that as a power. In addition, the Clammrs can be expanded into longer audio. So it can serve as a way to discover great audio, where you hear a news headline and summary, and you say, I want to hear more about that news story. And so you just click a hear more button, or you can double click on your mic, actually, if you have headphones on, if you don't want to look at your screen. And then it'll launch automatically the longer song, podcast, news item, and then come back to the feed when that longer thing is done automatically. So essentially what we're doing, if I had to really boil it down, is we're making audio more social and easier to discover. And there are 4 hours a day when the average American can't look at screens because they're doing things like their morning routine, drive time, housework, etc. There's a ton of great audio out there. And we're really trying to open up that 4 hours for people to get the most out of. So that's on the listener side. I'm happy to dive into really more the creator side and how folks who are trying to market themselves can take advantage of Clammr as well. But I'll pause there.
Okay. So one thing you just said is very, very fluently making audio more social. So how did you even come up with the concept of Clammr? And what about your background as well?
Yeah. So one of my co-founders and I, David Silverman, we met many years ago, actually in law school. Funny enough. And the reason I mentioned law school is that we're actually both slow readers. And so we've always, despite going to law school, so we've always gravitated toward audio sources as a way to get more knowledge and also because it's efficient. And so we'll often exchange audiobooks. If you would rip an audiobook and put it in Dropbox for me, I'm regularly sending him podcasts that I hear that I like and telling him, hey, listen to this interesting part. And it really came out of his forehead where he said one day, hey, why isn't there an audio Twitter? Why isn't there something like a Twitter where you can just share these little bites? And we looked around and we said, every media format has a short form social flavor. Text has Twitter. Images have Instagram. Video has Vine. But there's no bite-sized social audio. And we felt like there was a space there for it. Certainly in terms of our own behavior, we felt like something like that would be really additive. The thing that's interesting about audio is it's not really scannable. The unit size is typically quite large, whether it's 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour for a typical podcast, or even songs will go 3 to 5 minutes. So it's not something that you can really browse through. And we felt that if you actually shrink the audio down, you actually make it easier to discover and share because people are sharing these little bite-sized things. You're not going to commit necessarily to listening to 15 minutes of something that you've never heard of. But if somebody sends you a short bite, 18 seconds or less, you'll hit play and you'll engage in it. So it's a way to make audio, again, more discoverable and also social by way of sharing. But the background was really from a place of personal need and our own behavior as people who are really big users of audio. And then obviously we dug in after that initial inspiration and did more of the validation around usage, testing it with small groups of people, looking at the market and where it was headed and the market opportunity for it, and felt like, there's actually a real business here in addition to just generically a good idea. We both had corporate backgrounds. I had worked at a company called McKinsey, which is a management consulting firm, and David had been an investment banker at Morgan Stanley in their M&A group. And so we both had these analytic backgrounds that we could bring to bear to really validate the opportunity as a business, in addition to just it meeting a real area of personal need.
And if you don't mind me asking, what year were the beginning stages of Clammr?
Yeah, so we did some prototyping, but we pulled the full team together in September. So
September last year?
That's right, in September, that's
Wow.
right. We pulled the team together, and there are four of us who are founders. Warren Goldfinger is the front-end developer and CTO, and Kenito does the back-end development for Clammr. And so we've been in development since then. We were in a very rough early beta and then opened things up a bit more, put the app on the App Store, but had a password wall on it, just so we could grow our beta group over the winter. And then we really launched and introduced ourselves to the public formally at the NMX conference that you referenced that was in Las Vegas, which was, I guess, now about 6 weeks ago.
Okay. And with so many apps out, how have you been able to stand out? And was, I guess, podcasting always a marketing strategy since you're an avid listener?
Yeah. We think with Clammr, it's addressing a two-sided market and a two-sided equation, creators as well as listeners. And so in terms of introducing Clammr to the world, we decided to focus on creators as a starting point and really show a value proposition to them, have them become users of Clammr. And we felt like if we have something great for creators that enhances what they do, listeners will follow them. They often have listenership and fans already who will come with them. So our go-to-market approach is really focused very much on the creator community, and that's been a real success in terms of just the audio community in general is just very open and receptive and positive. And so folks were very much willing to experiment and play around and give us great feedback. And so podcasters have been one area of focus. Musicians have also really joined Clammr and done a lot. A lot of the content is music on Clammr. There are several great music channels and a lot of independent musicians just either putting up highlights of their music or, doing things that are experimental, just throwing a riff out, seeing how it lands and getting feedback from others. And there's a lot of collaborative creation that happens on Clammr. You can use the app to actually create these clips, either using your voice or pulling things in, anything that's on SoundCloud or that's in your iPhone's podcasts that you've downloaded, you can pull in and clip the 18-second piece directly and do some really creative work, whether it's as an artist or as just somebody who's a fan of podcasts and wants to share the highlights with friends. Clammr has that facility to do that.
Well, you said some good things, community and collaboration, so I would like to dive into that. What are some qualities that you look for in regards to your business relationships? Since there are 4 founders, was it something that you were already working well together, or you just kind of pulled people in as time progressed?
It's a great question. It's so essential to really any endeavor, but certainly a startup. We really came at it from a place of relationships. So David and I had a long-standing relationship. We'd started a business in law school. We invested and built other businesses together since then, even while we had our full-time gigs. And so we built both a great friendship and also, more importantly, I think for the purpose of business, a great working relationship. And so as we added folks to the team, personal references were very important. So somebody David had known and worked with for over 19 years had referenced Warren. And we actually interacted with a lot of developers to really ultimately land on somebody who was going to be a good fit. We went through a dating period of about a month and a half where he was doing some nights and weekends while at his previous job to make sure there was a good fit and also really alignment with the vision. And so after that period of just working together and a very personal reference that came, we mutually got comfortable. And then with Ken, that's somebody Oren had worked with for over 10 years. And so he was the best person Oren had ever worked with on the back-end development front. Yeah, I think you always have these trade-offs and thoughts on team in terms of things like speed, direct expertise, personal rapport, alignment with vision. We very much oriented toward alignment with vision and alignment with the culture of the team. And even when there were things like, hey, this person hasn't worked on X before, we felt like if you have a strong athlete, that person is going to pick things up versus going after somebody who's just a very narrow expert, maybe get you far very early on, but you have a cost there if there isn't full alignment or if they're not fundamentally a strong athlete.
Absolutely. So since there is 4 of y'all, it gives y'all a chance to kind of divide and conquer. So how has networking benefited you, I guess, through just the startup of Clammr over the past couple of months?
Yeah, let me just make sure I caught that. You said, how does networking benefit us?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's a great question and item to bring up, because one of the things I think that we've learned and gotten much better at is sometimes very early on, we were a little bit cagey about what we were doing and a little bit kept things to ourselves. And what we learned over time is it's far more beneficial to be incredibly open and transparent with people and say, hey, here's this thing we're working on. Here's why it's interesting. Here's why we think it's interesting for you and for users. And here's why it's a great business as well, just so you know where we're coming from. And when you communicate to people what you're doing, what's amazing is, and if you have real passion around it, a lot of people glom on and actually just want to be helpful. I think it's human nature to want to be helpful. So on the networking front, it was really about starting to tell our story and communicating it publicly and openly and doing it in communities that were a match with what we've been doing. And things kind of really took off from there. In advance of going to NMX, for example, we just took the time to look at who all the speakers were, look at who all the presenters were, and understand their backgrounds and really tried to actively seek them out for advice. We approached the podcaster community respectfully in the sense that we know that podcasting's been around for almost 10 years now at this point, and longer if you even go before Apple. And there have been people who are really experienced and have seen a lot. And so we came to them and said, look, we're doing something interesting here that we think is additive, but we've got a lot to learn. Help us learn. And folks really went out of their way to take the time to teach us some of the history of podcasting, to introduce us to other podcasters, etc. And in the music space, what we did was we actually embedded Clammr in the Berklee College of Music, which is the country's leading modern music program. That's Berklee, Berklee in Boston, not the larger university. And again, just incredibly generous community. The gentleman who runs their Institute for Creative Entrepreneurship, Panos Panay, really kind of took us under his wing and connected us with the student community, and they became a set of interns and users for Clammr. They gave us terrific feedback.
And you also mentioned, the marketing of Clammr. So if you're not a musician or a podcaster, what are some other industries, or how can people consider Clammr like, hey, let me try this out, even though I'm not a musician or podcaster?
Well, I think there are at least 2 ways to think about that. As a user, really it's, do you want to make better use of your time every single day? Do you want to learn more and get better entertainment? And so as a user, anybody can get value from Clammr, because there's that 4 hours a day, again, where you can't look at your phone screen. You can't look at a computer or TV screen. Your eyes are occupied. And a lot of that for a lot of folks is dead time. Some of them may pull up, a music app, for example, but some of those get old. They often are just top 40 or tend to go heavy toward the top 40. And podcasts, we're obviously huge fans, but are very hard to discover and access. Mm-hmm. So I think for just a typical user, the fact that you can just press a button and then you get this personalized stream that just goes without any additional work or drama is pretty compelling as a way to get a life upgrade, essentially, and it's almost like cheating. You're learning a bunch of great stuff. You're getting great music and comedy and entertainment, and you didn't really have to do anything for it. I think for folks who are coming at it more from the angle of they've got a business of some sort, and so they would potentially be generating content or trying to use Clammr as a new social outlet, there are a few really great options. One of the things that works well on Clammr is tips. So if you're somebody who's trying to market yourself or your business, think about ways of creating these tips. I'll give you an example. It actually goes more toward listings, but there's a real estate agency that started to use Clammr, and they've been posting these short house listings or home listings on Clammr, just one after the other they play. And it was really a brilliant idea. I mean, people are in their cars driving around, and if you're somebody who's looking for a home, at the time that you're looking, you're typically trying to understand everything that's on the market. And this is just a really efficient way for you to get these highlights. And you can just hit save or like against any that catch your interest. And then we actually send you a daily digest of everything you save and like. So you'll get an email the next day with just those listings and anything else that you liked. But that was a really smart way for somebody in real estate who you might not think would be appropriate to start posting. We've seen people who have health businesses, fitness businesses, start posting fitness tips. Rather than committing to making a whole podcast, you can just pull something out of your pocket, your phone, and then just quickly start creating these tips. And the neat thing is, they're not just on Clammr. So when you create them, they automatically get posted Facebook and Twitter. So you basically get this social reach outside of Clammr from Clammr. And also, everything on Clammr is an open object. So anything that's an account or a channel or even a search term can be embedded as a widget on a website. So you can now have this multimedia aspect to your website. We saw one person who had health tips, a bunch of articles on health tips. And so he created Clammrs out of them and put the Clammr widget on his website. And now people just press play and they hear these tips, and they can press another button on the widget that's a read more button to launch the whole article. So it's a way for him to expose some of this content that's kind of buried in his website from a simple little audio player. And you can even share that with partners who can embed it on their websites too. A lot of blogs are always looking for content. And now, if you're somebody who's got some tips that you've created on Clammr, you've got something that you can go to potential partners and say, hey, I've got this really valuable piece of content. You can just have it for free, and it's a way for you to promote yourself. So that's kind of the second broad way that folks can use Clammr, which is thinking about ways to convert what they do into valuable content. And it doesn't take any production chops. You just, speak into the mic, and it can be as simple as that. We, of course, have some background sounds and other things that people can use on Clammr. There's a whole sounds section. You can do multi-track recording where you layer the sounds on top of your voice.
Oh my God, I love those ideas. I'm going to have to start implementing some of those.
Sure.
I've been struggling.
And Michelle, I'll just flag that we actually created a 45-minute YouTube workshop called Clammr Skills 101. And so anybody who, I know I've thrown out a lot here for your listeners, that Clammr Skills 101 video starts from the very basics and goes through everything around listing and creation, but then has a whole section about how to use Clammr to generate social reach. And that video, 45 minutes is a long time, there's a section at the bottom that says show more. And that's a series of time-stamped hyperlinks to each of the contents. So you can look at that as a table of contents and jump around from topic to topic. And a lot of folks have found that incredibly valuable. It's a way to really dig deep into Clammr and take full advantage of what the platform can do for really social marketing in the audio space.
No, I appreciate that. I'm definitely going to add that to the show notes as well as share it with some of my Facebook groups. Definitely beneficial. So thank you. So we're about to wrap up here. So what's in store in the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, a lot of exciting things coming down the pike. So we are on iOS right now, and we have a very basic publisher portal that's at publisher.clammr.com that lets you load just MP3s, not grab snippets from other sources, and just do some listening, but not do things like liking and customization. So one exciting thing that's coming down the pike is we are going to be launching very soon, imminently, in the next week or so, or 2 weeks at the most, a mobile web responsive version of Clammr, so that Android folks can go to our website and get a Clammr experience. It's very much like the app, and folks who want to use it on the desktop can get more than what they can today on the publisher portal. So that's, I think, one thing that's super exciting. And then obviously great partners joining. Since we launched to the public, we've had over 2,500 content creators post their own content on Clammr. And then that's not accounting for all the listeners, et cetera, who are joining and listening to their stuff. So we're obviously going to continue a number of the content creators have really stepped up and are trying to pull together channels and pull together communities, things like moms and other areas. And so we're going to be featuring those channels as default options for users. Right now, when a new user signs up, they see a set of channels that they can choose, and those are ones that we curated. And any user can create their own channel that is comprised of just the accounts that they want, in case you want to really customize around some themes. But we'll be featuring community members in the channels they're curating over time, and we're really excited about that. We really think of Clammr, we want to be the party convener, but we really think of it as something that's being driven by the community. So keep on the lookout for that. And then, of course, just some additional features. We're regularly updating Clammr, releasing new versions every couple of weeks. We'll be doing some playlisting, which a lot of folks are excited about as well.
So how do you define success, and how can our audience get in touch with you if necessary?
Yeah, so success for us is creating a great product that people love. We want Clammr to be home screen worthy. We want a meaningful set of our users to have Clammr on their home screen, and it's really their A option. For some people, just their A option overall when it comes to consuming entertainment and information or spreading the word about something they're doing. And for others, the A option, at least during that 4 hours, years only time. So we consider it success when we've got a real critical mass of people who are committed to using Clammr because it's really value adding for their day. And we're already seeing that, which we've seen some folks create a Facebook group just on their own, just to exchange tips about Clammr. And we've even started seeing people build businesses on top of Clammr just because they get it and they know that all of the social platforms, one of the big lessons is the people who got in early often have this lock-in effect. I mean, you look at the top 500 Twitter accounts today, over 80% of them joined Twitter before it had even 10% of its current user base. So 80% of the top 500 were the first people who actually got on Twitter. And so we're seeing people build businesses, like somebody is the business buff guys are building a service for podcasters where they will go and make Clammrs out of their podcasts and distribute those socially for them. We've seen Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting, who's really a luminary in the podcasting space, create a podcast called the Clammrcast, where he goes through the top 20 Clammrs every week, establishing himself as kind of the Casey Kasem of Clammr, which is pretty cool. So that's been really inspiring to see folks really jump on and really start to think about benefits to them and building on the platform. And we're thrilled to have Clammr be the source of the community's success and people really saying, this changed my life in terms of the kind of business I was able to build with Clammr, or the kind of social presence I was able to establish for myself.
Awesome.
And in terms of contacting me, folks can contact me on Twitter. We're pretty active there, and we're just at Clammr apps, CLAMMR. The Wizard of Oz there behind that, so I'll definitely see it. And of course, on Clammr, I'm at Parviz, Parviz. Follow me. We have a private messaging function in Clammr. Send me a message, and then obviously email, etc. We're a very accessible crew, and we're really committed to responding to feedback, as well as really helping folks who want to use Clammr beyond just listening to be successful on it.
Absolutely. So, Parviz, I want to thank you for being so generous with your time today. You're definitely right. You are very accessible on Twitter. So thank you for that. That's how I was able to reach out to you.
Well, Michelle, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for networking with Michelle. You have a great day.